And at that level, sure as heck they know who they are and who their ultimate controllers are. Well, not ultimate controllers, but who their next controllers are, which are non-human entities that operate just outside the frequency range of human sight, because we have, with our five senses, the ability to access what is, when you look at it, an infinitesimally small frequency range that we can see and perceive through the five senses. And just outside of that, vibrating outside of that frequency range, are these entities. And sometimes they can move into our frequency range, and people go, "Did you see that? Did you see that? Did you see?" I've just seen, and then suddenly they've gone. It's the same with what we call UFOs, where people say, "Hey, I saw a UFO, and then it disappeared in front of my eyes," and people say, "What were you on that night?" No, it didn't disappear. It left the frequency range that human sight can access. That's all. So it appeared to disappear. And so these people know, and they interact with these entities in their grotesque rituals at this highest level that I'm talking about. They absolutely know who their masters are, their immediate masters are anyway.
David, microchipping. What's the purpose? Why do they want us eventually all to have these things in our bodies?
Well, that's a really, really important question, because what we're looking at, and it's, I talk about two techniques of manipulation: problem, reaction, solution, where you create the problem, you tell the public a false version of who's responsible for the problem, and then you offer the solution to the problem. That's what's happened with 9/11. It's what's happening with global warming, which is a total scam in terms of the fact that it's caused by human-created carbon emissions. Then there's another one alongside that called the totalitarian tiptoe, as I call it, where you're going from A to Z, and you know you're going to Z, but you go from A to B to E to H in little steps, and then people don't see that the steps are all connected and leading in a certain direction. But the totalitarian tiptoe has now become the totalitarian sprint, because these changes in society that are imposing more and more control are getting faster and faster and faster, not least because of the simple equation: the more you centralize power, the more power you have to centralize even quicker. That's why centralization of power in all areas of our lives is getting faster and faster. And the ultimate control that they want of society is microchipped babies at birth. Now, we're having all this stuff now about identity cards. This is just a totalitarian tiptoe step towards what they really want, and are now openly talking about, and they're being used on increasing numbers of people, and that's microchipping. Now, what is microchipping? On one level, yes, people say it's about electronic tagging, so everyone knows where you are, where the computer knows where you are all the time. That's true, because these chips are designed to be connected to the global satellite network, and just like sat-nav in your car, you will have a sat-nav in your body called a microchip, but it's more than that. You see, this is why, in the book, the dots need connecting, because if you go back to the fact that the human body is a biological computer, and in a desktop computer, we have something called a CPU, a central processing unit, which filters all the information data. And it's known, funnily enough, by computer people, the CPU, as the brain of the computer. Well, we have a brain in our computer. We call it the human brain. And in a desktop computer, the CPU is a microchip. And what I'm saying is, once we are microchipped, they have access to the body computer. The reason that they're talking about having human computer interfaces, as they call them, is because they're interfacing, in effect, two computers, one immensely more sophisticated and advanced, of course, but in principle the same thing. So once they get access to our the body computer through a microchip, they have access to our electrical and chemical systems, which, as I talked about earlier, manifest on one level as thought and emotion. They can manipulate the way we think, they can suppress the way we think, they can affect us emotionally, and they can, they can affect us physically from a distance once they have our microchip in our bodies, which takes us to another thing. In Britain now, and it's increasingly the case around the world, we are having this enormous DNA database being created. I don't know what your experience is in America on this, but in this country, if you are stopped by police or arrested for any crime whatsoever, and even if you are not ultimately charged, or if you ultimately are found to be innocent in court, it doesn't matter. When you attend the police station, your DNA is taken, and it's not removed from the base if you're found to be innocent or you're subsequently not charged. And it's a backdoor method of getting everyone's DNA. They have millions of people's DNA now in Britain through this method. Now, what is DNA? It is a crystalline transmitter-receiver of information. And we all, we have a species internet, if you like, where we share the same basic DNA, but we all have a unique broadcast transmission frequency. So the DNA database is about knowing what people's DNA is, because from that they can work out what their frequency, broadcast frequency is. This is very important because through the microchip, they can then target right on the radio station, if you like, individual people, which will have fundamental effects on their physical, mental, and emotional state. And they can isolate people, or they can do it en masse. And this is why they want the microchip. And when I met a CIA scientist in 1997, and he told me about all this, he said, please just tell everybody, if they say no to just one thing in all this, say no to the microchip. That's what it's about. It's electronic tagging, yes, but it's about mental and emotional and physical control. That's what it's about.
Well, and it's moving. Catherine Albrecht, who's one of our regular guests, is so opposed to this, and she has discovered that at the point where the microchip has been put, for example, in a pet, tumors are starting to develop, David.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But again, when you don't have empathy with the victims of your actions, then that's not a problem. It's a problem to us, but it's not a problem to them, because people just think what the general human attitude is to cattle. Well, that's what this network's attitude is to us. We're just cattle. We're not to be looked upon as in any way important in terms of what happens to us. But the microchip is now being more and more pushed. And again, problem, reaction, solution. We want to microchip people so that we know their identity, we know where they are, because what we really want to do is we want to protect everybody from these terrible terrorists. And the idea is to have babies, as I said earlier, microchipped at birth as a matter of course, because that means this, George. Any consciousness incarnating into this reality from that point will be doing it through a body-computer vehicle that can be externally controlled through the microchip, which means that whoever controls that microchip system controls this reality. That's what it's about. This network wants to completely control this reality so that no one can come into it without being under their control, and that's what microchipping babies at birth is about.
The brain that came up with this must have been a genius.
Well, what it is, it's this network, and you hit here, George, on a really important point where I was talking about how far does the rabbit hole go, because this whole reptilian manipulation, that's one level of it. That's just the next level of it. It's the next slice on the or level of the cake, if you like. And where I'm traveling is through that to find out what's behind that. And you bring up an interesting point. There is some consciousness, bizarre, perverse as it is, that is orchestrating this. There's absolutely no question, and it's beyond any kind of reptilian or extraterrestrial entities. But the thing is that these people are, and that consciousness is clever, extremely clever, but it's stupid, because there's a difference between being clever and being wise. It's very clever to know how to create a nuclear weapon, but it's wise not to do so. That's one of that's the difference between cleverness and wisdom. And cleverness without wisdom is the most destructive force on Earth. And what we have with this network that's manipulating this planet is cleverness without wisdom.